What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you 5 games that play great on the Steam Deck. Recently, just a few weeks ago, I got a Steam Deck actually, primarily to use in my reviews for various games and make notes about how well they run. And to that end, I actually recently did a video talking about CRPG gaming on the Steam Deck across the board. But here today, I wanted to take a look at titles I had played previously or had reviewed previously and just kind of see how they ran and provide that feedback to everyone watching this video. But with no further ado, let's actually jump into this thing and start talking about some games. So first up, we have Elden Ring. I doubt I really need to explain Elden Ring to anybody at this point. It had a tremendous launch back in March. Technically a couple days right before the start of March if you want to get specific, but basically March. And it had a great launch for a good reason, and that's that it's a great game to play, actually. So naturally I was curious about how this one played on Steam Deck after reviewing it, and as you can probably see on screen at this point, it runs pretty remarkably well on the Steam Deck, actually. In fact, just installing it and firing it up, you'll have a pretty good experience. Though that said, like most games on the Steam Deck, if you want to take the time to tailor the settings a little bit, it can run even better for you. But given the sheer size and scope of Elden Ring, it just surprises me that you can enjoy this game pretty much in its entirety on the Steam Deck without really having to do much of anything. There are 1 or 2 pain points that are more specific to the game than the Steam Deck, however. For instance, the game itself actually has the option to display either keyboard or gamepad controls regardless of which one you're using, so you might have to go into the options and specify which one you're using, or more specifically, tell the game which button prompts to actually show you. But beyond that, it's honestly a really great experience, which is helped along by, I think, the actual gameplay of Elden Ring, where you can play it in short bursts and still kind of make some progress, despite its very large open world nature. But that brings us to our second title, and this is Divinity Original Sin 2. A frequent appearance on this relatively CRPG-focused channel, so something my regular viewers are very familiar with, I'm sure. The only real complaint I have about this one is that the load times can be pretty significant when it comes to Original Sin 2, but once you're actually loaded in, the game runs very, very well. And interestingly enough with this title, while I normally play on PC almost entirely, I had never used the controller layout for Original Sin 2 as a result. I had always just used the PC controls because that's where I was playing it. So the Steam Deck was my first experience with Original Sin 2's controller support, and surprisingly enough, I actually somewhat preferred the controller support as to keyboard and mouse controls, which again is surprising because as I'm sure you'll see throughout this video, I'm pretty terrible with a controller because almost all of my muscle memory is keyboard and mouse at this point, which can lead me to be pretty comically bad with controllers for a guy who plays games almost nonstop. That said though, while Original Sin 2 will run really well on the Steam Deck, a problem you might run into here is the length of some of the combat sequences. Original Sin 2 is known for being quite a long game, and if you're unaware, the Steam Deck can have a bit of a short battery life, especially depending on the intensity of the games you're playing, meaning that while Original Sin 2 does run very well, you might wind up fighting your battery life a little bit if you're actually playing it out and about as opposed to just like a different room of your house. And that brings us to our third title on the list, a personal fun one of mine, and that is Maneater. Maneater is an RPG where you play as a shark that slowly evolves and mutates into a more powerful, murderous shark. This game tends to be more just dumb fun than anything else, so I think it's actually well suited for the Steam Deck in that regard, which works out because, again, as the video would tell you, it runs pretty well there. You might need to mess around with the graphical settings a little bit to get the most out of it. I did notice a few hiccups and things like that in terms of the frame rate every once in a while, but by and large it worked quite well, and it was a lot of fun running around as a shark, jumping onto beaches and eating people, which is really what Maneater's all about. But that, coupled with the fact that it's a relatively short game, the story of Maneater will probably run you like 8 to 10 hours, kind of makes it a great game to play in short bursts while you're out and about somewhere, which makes the fact that it runs well on the Steam Deck a big plus if you're looking for something to just kind of mess around with for 30-40 minutes while, say, you're waiting on something. And that brings us to number 4, and this is actually Deathloop. I was playing this game on the Steam Deck relatively recently for one reason, and that is because it got an update not that long ago called the Golden Loop update, which added a bunch of content, weapons, a mission or 2, items, that kind of thing. And that got me thinking how it actually played on the Steam Deck, and this particular game I think I actually prefer on the Steam Deck to the PC experience, at least. And this, in a lot of ways, comes down to the actual gameplay loop of Deathloop, which of course revolves around a sort of time loop where we play through the same day over and over again, but this creates a gameplay loop where you're playing for a relatively short burst at a time before diving back into menus to set up your next loop. And this gameplay actually works really well on the Steam Deck, though this is a game where my vast inexperience playing with a controller really shined. I did really poorly in terms of actual gameplay here, but nonetheless, the experience, I think, worked a lot on the Steam Deck. Though, this game, more so than the others on this list, I really did have to adjust the settings. This game is pretty RAM hungry, and that's not something that the Steam Deck has a ton of, so I had to play with the settings quite a bit for this particular one. But overall, yeah, just a fun experience, and I think the gameplay here actually works better on the Steam Deck than the PC. But that brings us to our last and final entry, and this is, of course, The Witcher 3. This one I wasn't really too surprised about by any means, given that it's been on Nintendo Switch for a while and actually plays pretty well over there. So it unsurprisingly plays quite well on the Steam Deck, with the occasional notable problem if you're out in like really big open areas. You will see the occasional dip in frame rate, but beyond that it runs quite well, which is remarkable given the sheer size of this game, much in the same way that Elden Ring surprised me. That said, The Witcher 3 is of course a much lauded game that gets a ton of love, so naturally people are very curious about how it runs. And the answer is of course quite well. And really my only note for this one is that, like a lot of bigger games, it can feel a little overwhelming to play it on something more portable while you're out and about, though I do think it's a great option if you're just looking to, say, do some of the bounty quests like hunting down various monsters, and a pretty structured side quest the way The Witcher 3 does can be a lot of fun, and in that way I think it's a great choice for the more portable aspect of the hardware. That's all I've got for you guys today. 5 games that are a great fit for the Steam Deck for various reasons. Certainly hope you enjoyed it. Going forward from here, I'll likely do a video like this every once in a while, just talking about some of the games I've previously reviewed or specific genres of games that run particularly well on Steam Deck. So if you want more of that kind of content, by all means let me know down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're at it. But regardless of all that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.